Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Z and I'm a Canadian Pakistani cinematographer. And today we're going to compare arguably the two most talked about cameras of 2024. You have the Blackmagic Pyxis and then the Red Komodo X. Now I'm going to be comparing these. Physically, I'm going to talk about what I like and dislike about both of these cameras. And then at the end, I'm also going to show some test footage between these two cameras as a blind test to see if we can see the difference in image quality between both of these. Granted, one is a full frame and the Red Komodo X is a Super 35, so you might notice some difference in the depth of field, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. Now, I do want to talk about the body itself. I was quite surprised for two reasons. Number one is this is quite a bit larger than the Komodo X. Granted, this does have a 6K full frame sensor in it, whereas the Red Komodo X has a Super 35 sensor. I will argue that the sensor is probably better in the Red Komodo X because it does have a global shutter. And there have been a lot of tests with the sensor on the Blackmagic, which is known to have some bad rolling shutter. I'll link some tests that CineD did on both of these sensors, so you can read up and see both the dynamic range and the rolling shutter speeds on both of these cameras. Okay. Now, the body itself, what I love about the Blackmagic Pyxis is all the different mounting options that's built right into the camera, which I find the Komodo X is quite lacking. For example, on the top here, you have a various amount of mounting options, whereas you don't really get that on the Red. Now, the most controversial part of the Blackmagic Pyxis was having this screen on the left-hand side of the body versus the top where it's found on the Komodo X. To be honest, I don't love that the screen is on the left. You are forced to use a monitor with this. Otherwise, you're always looking to the side. One of the other things I don't like about the monitor being here is anytime I'm going to pick up this camera, my hand always touches the screen. I do find that a bit cumbersome and annoying. So I don't really like having my thumbprint and fingerprints on here all the time when I'm going to pick this up. But again, this is really meant to be a camera that you rig up, so that isn't a problem you will be running into often, but just in those off chances where you do need to rig it down, let's say for gimbal work or some handheld light run and gun work, it does get quite cumbersome picking this camera up like this and always having your hands touching the screen and putting pressure on it. Whereas you don't really get that problem on the Komodo X with the screen being on top. But that is just a little caveat. Blackmagic did just recently announce and are soon to be releasing a monitor that you can put on that has the same options that you can get with the side screen. So I do like that. Now on the front here, you do get an L mount. There does come in two other options as well, which I believe is EF and PL. We went the L mount option just because it's easy to adapt to a PL or other options quite easily. And the Red here comes with an RF mount. Granted, Nikon just recently did purchase their company, so I'm sure in the future that will be switching. But again, I'm personally just using this with a PL mount adapter and using my PL mount lenses on here. So both are getting an adapter put on the front and then being used with some cinema lenses that are PL mounts. Now, there are a few things I dislike about the Red body. One, as I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of mounting options. You really are meant to use this with cages because otherwise you're quite limited to what you can attach to here. But again, this was kind of originally meant as a crash cam for Hollywood movies. But of course, a lot of filmmakers found this sensor just absolutely amazing with its global shutter. So yeah. Another thing I don't like about this camera is the screen itself. I do find it quite small. In those situations where you're not using a monitor, this is very difficult to use. Granted, Red does have a great app that you can attach and use your phone as a monitor and also control through their Wi-Fi settings. So there is some caveats with both of these bodies. I don't think there is a perfect body that exists. There's obviously trade-offs to both of these, but they are both fantastic cameras, especially at the price point, and more so for the Blackmagic Pyxis because again, it does come in at 3,000 USD versus the 7,000 USD of the Red Komodo X. Now, Blackmagic obviously has Blackmagic RAW that it comes with, which is a 12-bit RAW technically it's not true RAW because Red does hold the patent for the RAW system, which I don't know will be happening with Nikon's acquisition with that, but we will see. And the RAW on here is 16-bit, so you do get a lot more sensor information and color depth, which is great if you're doing a lot of color work or visual effects. So I don't think you're gonna get a lackluster image out of the Blackmagic Pyxis compared to that, but that is just something to keep in mind, that you do get true RAW out of here, and then the Blackmagic RAW, which is 12-bit versus the 16-bit of the Red RAW. Now, I'm gonna be showing some test footage between both of these cameras so you can kind of see a difference between the image quality of both of these. So this is gonna be a blind test and I'll reveal the shot of which is which camera shortly after. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoy the test footage.